What do you get when you combine Ocean's 11, The Godfather, set it in medieval Venice, and have the whole thing directed like a Guy Ritchie crime film? G'day BookTube, you're here with Nick, the Renaissance Bookman, and in this video, I'm going to give you my spoiler-free review of The Lies of Locke Lamora by Scott Lynch. And then I'm going to give you 4 reasons why this book should be on your TBR. Scott Lynch's debut novel, The Lies of Locke Lamora, was first published back in 2006. And whilst it's the first of many, hopefully more, Locke Lamora stories, this one reads terrifically well like a standalone novel. The story follows prodigious thief and master conman Locke Lamora and his team of orphan misfits, the Gentlemen Bastards, as they try to outmaneuver, trick, con, and steal their way through Camor's underbelly. However, as is the case with any con, things don't always go according to plan. And in fact, given the political climate of this 16th century thereabouts bustling trade city, things go wrong more often than they actually go right for Locke and his team. So Locke and his Gentlemen Bastards, they need to adapt to overcome forces that are far greater and often far more powerful than themselves. And that's all that I'll say at this stage for the spoiler-free review of The Lies of Locke Lamora. And now let's jump into the 4 reasons why this book should be on your TBR. Reason number 1 why you need to have this book on your TBR is that there is a dynamic friendship group that you will genuinely care for. The Gentlemen Bastards. The name is appropriate. It is apt because they will steal and rob you of every single dollar and cent that you have ever earned. And they will do it in such an elaborate way that will leave you totally and utterly embarrassed that you won't even report the crime. You will be so mortified that you will not tell a soul. Yet the dichotomy here is that they have such a genuine and strong moral code.
You gotta be kidding me.
No guns, no killing.
Where's the fun in that?
Loyalty and honor are really prominent when it comes to the Gentlemen Bastards. There's also a genuine respect for religious customs. Unlike the rest of Camor's miscreants, these guys will not spill your blood unless they absolutely have to in self-defense. The net result is a group of people that you find yourself genuinely caring for, rooting for, and getting behind. You've also got all the ingredients that you want in a dynamic team. You've got the jack of all trades with the twins. You've got the brute, the enforcer, the muscle that is Jean Tanner. You've got the young, unassuming underdog chomping at the bit just to get his chance to prove that he is worth being a part of the team. And then you've got the brains, the intellect, Locke himself, the Danny Ocean of our team. The group brings together this quirky group dynamic with distinct personalities such that you already know who is speaking before the dialogue tag even appears in the book. Now, loyalty is a trait that I hold really dear and close to my heart. And so when I'm reading a fictional story, I find myself gravitating to those characters that are selfless and what they say is what they'll do, and they are loyal almost to a fault. For this reason, I was kind of inherently predisposed to enjoy this book. Loyalty, friendship, ride or die mateship. These guys are professional liars, yet the trust in each other is ironclad. And I love and respect that in a friendship group. So if you too value loyalty over personal gain, then this is a book that you'll be able to get behind. The second reason why you need to have this book on your TBR is that there is a distinct narrative voice that really gives the book its own unique personality. Now, I am a lover of all things Guy Ritchie. Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels, Rock and Roller, Snatch, The Gentleman. I love everything that Guy Ritchie puts out, except for maybe Aladdin. I wasn't the biggest fan of Aladdin, but that's okay. In fact, his most recent series that my wife and I have just started over the last couple of days, Young Sherlock. The banter that you get in that between Sherlock and Moriarty.
When are you going to stop blocking people's fists with your nose?
It wasn't his fist, James. It was his forehead.
Yes, well, when you're engaged in combat, it actually helps to throw a punch from time to time.
Is very eerily similar to what I was picturing as I was reading the back and forth between the Gentlemen Bastards, but in particular between Locke and Jean. Yet the most distinctive storytelling technique, directing technique that Guy Ritchie uses is that flashback. Scott Lynch uses these frequent flashbacks, these intercut scenes, to go back in time to add a whole bunch of depth to the story, to build on the characters and their backstory, but also to add a heck of a lot more when it comes to the culture and the world building. We're able to understand the history of the city of Camor that we find ourselves in, despite having not lived through it ourselves. And so as the conversations continue and they drop names and specific dates and key events, we get a little bit of insight to these through some of these intercut scenes, and it adds a much more involved and in-depth world. It's done really, really well, but not quite perfectly. Now, I can see that there was a 50-page section of the book where we cut forward to what became our current day main storyline, and I found it really quite jarring. And it all had to do with the fact that I couldn't visualize Locke's age well enough. Lynch doesn't describe to you how old he is in each section. There are little tidbits that you have to pick up on to appreciate how old Locke is. We know that he's about 6 or 7 in the beginning, and later we discover that he's about 26 or 27 as this story is unfolding. But in my mind's eye, he was like 13. And so when he's imitating and using as part of his con a really successful businessman, I struggled to visualize it. I wasn't believing what Locke was putting in, despite how charismatic he was being on page. So I had to get out of my own way. And as soon as I was able to just go, Nick, just move on. He's quite clearly older than what you're visualizing. The intercut and flashback scenes started just working so much better to me. And from that moment onwards, they were a huge strength in the way that Lynch told this story. The third reason why this book needs to be on your TBR is that it has some of the best dialogue in modern fantasy. Like all good friendship groups, the gentleman bastards are constantly ripping into each other. The banter is rife. And growing up in Australia, you have to be pretty thick-skinned, because who needs enemies when you got mates like Aussie mates, where they will just cut you down, keep you humble, and rip into you at a moment's notice. The gentleman bastards are exactly like this. However, I felt that they did it with an element of elegance. They almost had an element of grace to the way that they were doing it. It was crude and crass from time to time, but I don't feel like that was the focus. See, their mentor, Father Chains, instilled in them in the need to be able to blend in any crowd, to be highbrow when the need arises. Because, Locke Lamora, someday you're going to dine with barons and counts and dukes. You're going to dine with merchants and admirals and generals and ladies of every sort. And when you do, Chains put 2 fingers under Locke's chin and tilted the boy's head up so they were eye to eye. When you do, those poor idiots won't have any idea that they're really dining with a thief. So that culture within the gentleman bastards, that desire to be highbrow when the need arises, sort of infiltrates in the way in which they talk with each other. They're orphans, right? They're slums of slums. They should almost be dying on the street from any sort of disease. So they would be forgiven for being really crass and colloquial in their everyday tone and in their everyday tongue. However, that is not the case. The banter isn't just crude insults. It's half the time it sounds almost like a philosophical debate into the art of thievery. You're enjoying this far too much. Of course I am. It is an art. It's fraud. Fraud can be art. Okay, so I've read a few of the other quotes that I have highlighted and tagged myself as I've gone along. And I think it's a little bit cruder than I might have given it credit for. Here's another one, for example. I'll kick your ass so hard, every piece of shit that falls out of you for the rest of your life will have my goddamn heel print on it. There is also another one about becoming intimate with a shark, but it makes me blush just thinking about reading it out loud. So I'll let you use your imagination when it comes to that one. Okay, so it's obviously a lot cruder than I gave it credit for, but it's still good fun. They're elegant with how crude they are in their witty back and forth. But genuinely, honour and sarcasm are always front of mind whenever Locke and the team get themselves into trouble. And they get into trouble a heck of a lot. There's one scene in particular that's really quite famous where Locke finds himself face to face with a big city-level boss for the first time. And we have one of those Guy Ritchie intercut scenes where we flash back where Father Chains, Locke's mentor, is describing to him the authority and the power that these city-level boss-type people have. Sorcery is impressive enough, but it's their attitude that makes them such a pain. And that's why, when you find yourself face-to-face with one, you bow and scrape and mind your sirs and madams. Given this backdrop, Locke would be forgiven for grovelling and pleading for mercy when he finds himself face-to-face with this city-level boss. However, the words that we have from Locke to this bad guy in the first instance are simply, "Nice bird, arsehole." And the fourth reason why this book needs to be on your TBR is that there are real-world consequences that keep the tension high. One of the hardest elements for an author to navigate is the idea around plot armor. We obviously form the deepest relationships and have the most buy-in with our main protagonist. And that makes sense, right? We have to be rooting for them and care for them and want to know and protect them from all the big baddies that exist in our fantasy worlds. And as a result, the main protagonist needs a certain level of invulnerability to keep the stakes high enough, because they're the ones we care about, right? We have to have high enough stakes, but they need to keep surviving to keep us wanting to come back for more and more. Now, a close cousin to this issue of plot armor is when you find a protagonist that is just a little bit too Mary Sue. They're just a little bit too good at absolutely everything. They're adored and loved by everyone. They solve every single problem without even breaking a sweat. And my verdict on Scott Lynch and what he's created for Locke Lamora in particular is that I think he's done this quite well. Locke has a great deal of agency as he's trying to pull off this really, really quite elaborate con. He has some success and he establishes a level of aura about him, very similar to what you would see in June with Muad'Dib, before his identity is actually revealed.
Muad'Dib.
Is he myth, or is there something far more tangible behind the stories? Yet the world ultimately starts pushing back against Locke and his gentleman bastards. There are genuine consequences for his actions. We see him have some success, but then we see him fail. And we watch him to have to adapt and overcome and try some different things. And then we watch him fail again. And then he has to try a third way and grind his way to success. He is not in any way successful at everything that he tries. And Locke himself is an absolute liability when things get kinetic. He is quite clearly one of the worst fighters in this entire story. Our lead character is cunning, yet he's also fallible. He is devilishly charismatic, yet deeply flawed. He has great agency, yet consequences are forced upon him by powers greater than him in a really genuine and believable way. The Lies of Locke Lamora is a witty, clever fantasy crime story packed with memorable characters, sharp dialogue, and real stakes. It uses the Guy Ritchie intercut flashback technique to great success. Through that, we're able to build depth to our characters and build depth to our world building to make a more involved and rich world for us to explore. What I find interesting, though, it's actually the moral code of the gentleman bastards that results in the most unexpected outcomes. This is a strong recommend for anyone who likes charismatic, intellectual protagonists with strong themes of loyalty and brotherhood. Jump into the comments below and let me know, what was your favourite quote from the Lies of Locke Lamora? Until next time, ciao. Nice bird, arsehole. Oh, Tim. Not my best.